Um, yeah, I wanted, that last video I just made based on this regulator, touched on an interesting point. And by the way, it's been stable at 10 volts, with something of a load on it for um, quite a few minutes. Its transformers or transistors is still really cool to the touch. But yeah, it's anyway, 10 volts. Like I told you, it's this thing, is a variable frequency. Right now it's at that frequency, and it was down to much lower frequencies. Depending upon the conditions of where I had it set and everything. And again, most of these switch mode power supplies, they actually set at high frequencies for a couple of reasons, and one of which is, for it to be inaudible, so they want it to be at least 40 or 50 kilohertz typically, and that's so you can't hear it, because you could hear the high pitch, when I started loading it with higher currents, it was starting to struggle. That made the frequency really drop. And again, that's what's unusual about this supply is that it's a variable frequency. Um, but most supplies, are at a higher frequency, for the audio reasons. That's why you rarely see them under 50 kilohertz because of the audio. And of course, they also obviously run them at high frequency so they can use small transformers and small capacitors and stuff like that. That's why they're so inexpensive and lightweight. But you may be wondering, about those frequencies. Well, the fact of the matter is, you can design switch mode power supplies that run at, just a handful of hertz. Um, you know, um, certainly 1 kilohertz or less. You'll be able to hear them though. But you can design switch mode power supplies that work with conventional transformers, actually. And if you're wondering why on earth anybody'd want to do that, well, look no further than, you know, an APC regulator. Pretty much, especially all the older models of these, all have actual transformers in them. And, they're pretty big transformers too. Like that's a 650, so that's 650 watts it can supply. It's got a sizable 12 volt transformer in it, and and it's a conventional transformer. You can take that and hook it up to, an outlet and get yourself a 50 amp, 6 volt or 12 volt power supply, which is also split, so you can get twice that current at 6 volts. Um, they're actually quite useful, but they actually have high power FETs in these things. So if you ever come across these in a thrift store, it's worth grabbing one. That's why they weigh so much. Got that big transformer in there. And again, it depends on the size of the unit. I mean, smaller ones, of course, have smaller transformers, but they're still all the same. I don't know about the newer ones, but I know that the older ones are all like this. They got, honking big transformers in there, and they actually use high power FETs in a switch mode configuration, to boost the voltage, from 12 volts up to 120, or vice versa to charge the batteries. But, that's really running at a low frequency, it's because they're trying to, create a, pseudo sine wave or something like that, and they actually use switch mode FETs, and it's a good source for high power FETs too. So, these can be good resources, but yeah, that's a great example of a low frequency switch mode power supply, and it can't be higher than 400 hertz because they're using conventional laminated transformers in them. If my camera cord was lower, I'd show you an example of that I built and trying to make a spot welder out of it, which was partially successful. Um, Let me go see if I can grab it. Yeah, anyway, this is what I built, and this is out of one of those 650s. That's a high current transformer, and you know, so you can kind of see what the that is a conventional laminated transformer, and again, try making a little spot welder out of it. Again, it kind of works, but not as well as I'd like it to work. Um, but anyway, it was a experimental circuit. But yeah, these are really powerful um, little transformers, and again, they have a lot of FETs in them and things like that you might find useful. So anyway, I just thought I'd touch on that so that you could keep an eye out for things like that, because that can be useful. But anyway, cheers.